Hello, Dr. Keesha here, celebrating World Asthma Day and Autoimmune Day, Autoimmune Disease Day. Boy, I can't talk today. So one of the things that I was on my way down to hike my dogs the other day, and I noticed our stinging nettles are up and they're just getting ready to bloom. And I always get very excited at this time of year. It's springtime, but a lot of times people have hay fever, they have their asthma flare. And I wanted to do a little video to talk about how stinging nettles can help you. Stinging nettles are a ubiquitous weed around the world. People really usually don't like them because they get hurt when they go hiking if they run into them. And they have all kinds of, itch and pain that are associated with them, and people rip them out of their gardens and their yards. And we let them grow wild on our property because I love harvesting them. We live in the Pacific Northwest, and they are now about 2 to 3 feet high and just about to flower, which is a really great time to wildcraft them and harvest them. So this morning I had my husband take a little video of me harvesting our wildcraft, our stinging nettles.
It's also hay fever season, and a lot of people really suffer from hay fever, asthma attacks. May happens.
This is my B-roll footage.
Asthma Awareness Day. So I wanted to talk a little bit about nettles because they grow here wild in the Pacific Northwest and many other places around the United States and the world.
I wanted to get to the part about what they look like.
Helps to offset allergic reactions. So we're going to zoom in on what a nettle looks like, because if you're hiking, you don't want to run into these guys.
Okay, so that's what it looks
They have
like.
a heart-shaped leaf, and on top of the leaf and the stems, you can see if you zoom right in there, that there are some hollow filaments, and in those filaments is a poison, and that poison is this plant's protection from getting eaten. So when you harvest nettles, you need to have gloves on, nice, thick, heavy gardening gloves, and some old shears are what I'm using. And when they're new like this, it's springtime, they haven't flowered yet, it's a good time to get them. So we want to get them all the way down towards the root. And then lay it aside.
There you go. So that's how to harvest stinging nettles. Let's see if I can stop this video here. Okay, they are heart-shaped. They grow in the wild. They have a little filament on the leaves and the stems, if you didn't hear what I was saying. And inside of that hollow filament is a toxic compound that the plant produces to protect itself from getting eaten, basically. Now, that juice that's inside the leaves and even the roots and the stems of the stinging nettle is actually where the medicinal properties come from. These plants have been used since ancient times, and in fact, I read several years ago that when the Romans came over to try and defeat what's now known as Britain, it was so cold, and these guys are from where it's known as Italy now, and it's really warm usually, and they didn't think they were going to survive the cold and the damp, and so they would plant nettles so that they could harvest them and then put them all over their skin to numb themselves. So it's a numbing, burning sensation when you get into nettles, and they would do it on purpose to warm themselves up. Sometimes cultures, like some Native American cultures, would use them to stimulate their ability to not be attached to pain, and they would kind of whip themselves with the nettles. I know early Catholics used to do that also as a self-flagellation process. So nettles have been used for their painful properties for a lot of different reasons, but they also help alleviate pain. Now that seems sort of counterintuitive, I know, but the leaves contain a lot of histamine, and histamine is what's released when you're having a hay fever reaction or some kinds of asthma flares. So, like will treat like, and that's what Ayurvedic medicine teaches us. When you ingest that histamine from the leaves, it will calm the histamine in your body down. Actually, counterintuitively, much like when we have gastroesophageal reflux disease and we give ourselves a medication to reduce the acid, it's the exact wrong thing to do. An antihistamine is the exact wrong thing to do in this instance also. What you really want to do is say, oh, I don't have enough of that. I don't have enough stomach acid, so my body is having to overproduce. It's the same thing with the nettle and how it reacts with histamine in your body. So you want to add it to it rather than try and wipe it out. Now, when you get your nettles home, I also did a little video of that earlier that I'll post here on Facebook, but you will cut them, again, wearing your gloves, cut them to the same size. I usually do bundles that are about that big, 1 to 2 feet long, and bunch them at the stems, put a piece of string around them, and then you can hang them like from a closet rod, or we've got a big beam in our kitchen with nails that I can hang herbs from and dry them. It's nice if you can do it in a darker place like a closet, then you can just shut the door. Our far infrared sauna has been used many a time to dry herbs and dry seaweed that I harvest from the ocean here in the Pacific Northwest. So drying these things then preserves them that you can use them all year long, because of course they're only blooming here for a little while longer. Now, there are a few different ways that you can use nettles. One is to dry them, like I just said, and then you can crush them up and put like a cup in a mason jar and pour over boiling water. Let that steep, and you have a hot infusion of a nettle tea. And if you drink a quart of that every day, I'm going to tell you what the properties are here in just a couple minutes. It's amazing. You can also just stuff the nettles into a mason jar. You don't have to wash them if they have been come from a fairly clean place, or you can wash them if you want to. But you want to keep your gloves on, so you don't want those to get wet or the little filaments can get inside. So the other thing you can do is just stuff a stem with the leaves attached to it into a mason jar, pour over cold water over the top of it, cover it with the lid, and then you can put that in the refrigerator for a cold infusion. You can even freeze it to accelerate that process, and then defrost it slowly on the countertop. And it's also called moon tea, so you can put it out in the light of the moon and in the night where it's cool, and the next day you'll have a cold infusion. Now the cold infusion, you would want to strain the nettles out of that and then drink the liquid, and a quart of that a day, again, has some amazing medicinal properties. Another way that you can use it is you can put it in a saucepan with some water, cover it, and cook it much the same way you would spinach or any other green. And it's, again, loaded with some pretty amazing minerals and vitamins. So nettles they're just a wide range of activity that it has on the body and different properties that are all so great for you. All right, so let's talk about what nettles have inside of them that make them so amazing. One of the things that you need to know about nettles is they're loaded with a lot of the minerals that we take in supplement form. So selenium, which is great for your thyroid, boron and strontium, which are great for bone density. So one of the things that we know about nettles is that it really helps to rebuild bone density for you, especially ladies that are more of the Vata body type. Hi, Sarah. It's good to see you. So if you're a Vata body type, which is the bird body, right? Thin little bones, then you're more prone to osteopenia or osteoporosis. And stinging nettle infusions, drinking a quart of this every day, will help to rebuild your bone. Now, I've had patients that have taken this on as a challenge and had it every day for a year, gone back to get a DEXA scan when their prior DEXA scan showed that they had osteopenia or osteoporosis, and had it all the way better. Bone density of someone half their age. So that's remarkable. Now, I also have patients that don't really want to go through the hassle and would rather take a capsule. That is not as effective. I just want you to know that. So the way I'm talking about it, it's actually better. Now, for men that have what's called BPH, or benign prostatic hypertrophy, this is an enlargement of the prostate that's not a cancer. It happens when men age often, and it makes them get up in the night to have to urinate, or it makes their urinary stream hard to start. And again, stinging nettle infusions, a quart of that a day, watch and see what happens. Better than saw palmetto. It's really quite remarkable, and it alleviates a problem. So it can be used in combination with saw palmetto too. And then for hay fever, again, like I said, it has that antihistamine property because it actually is treating like with like, because the leaf and the stem of the nettle actually has histamine in it. So it really helps with hay fever symptoms. It can be used for eczema. It can be used, again, when we're talking about inflammation, it's an amazing anti-inflammatory. And with the eczema, it's a natural treatment that I was just looking at the study I was looking at Penn State University. They actually said sufferers can use a combination of nettle taken orally to tackle the eczema internally, as well as a cream on the outside, and it will help to relieve that itchiness and the flaking skin that happens with eczema. Now, it also helps. I remember when I was having trouble producing breast milk at one point with one of my babies, it helps to promote lactation. It helps to make your menstrual cycle regular. So you don't want to use it if you're pregnant, ladies. That's really important. Because it is an antihistamine, you don't want to also take it with other non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs because you'll have too much of the same action going on. It helps heal wounds. It helps treat hemorrhoids. It can stimulate contractions in pregnant women if you're trying to get labor going. Helps to treat insect bites, anemia, anything with the urinary tract and kidneys, and it helps reduce bleeding when you have gingival inflammation, gingivitis. And then it helps stimulate hair growth. So a lot of times people will take this cold infusion and sometimes even mix it with a little bit of raw apple cider vinegar and water and put that as a rinse through their hair, and it really helps the hair growth. So those of you that are losing hair, you might want to try this because it's an easy way to get at it. Hi, Misty. It's been a while since I've seen you too. It is nice to see you. Okay, so, and then like I said, the reason I got interested in stinging nettles' medicinal properties were because of autoimmune disease. It's got a lot of amazing activity against rheumatoid arthritis. So because it helps with inflammation of the joints, right, which is exactly what rheumatoid arthritis is. So again, a quart of this a day will replace your Advil, and you don't need to be taking it if you've got an inflammatory issue, even an autoimmune disease. Try it, because this morning, it took me just minutes to wildcraft to harvest these nettles. It's so simple. You just have to have those thick gloves on, like I showed in the B-roll footage that I just showed of me harvesting it this morning. Thick gloves, because if you do get stung, I'm going to tell you there are two things that I know of that takes the burn out. I did get stung when I was stuffing it in the jar. I had my gloves on, but I have 3/4 length sleeves on, and so my skin was exposed. And you probably can't see it, but I have a nice little stinging nettle rash right here. What happens is when you brush up against it, the filaments break off. They go into your skin like little needles that have the toxin that the plant produces to protect itself, and it goes into your skin and it causes some rashy, numb, itching. Now, a couple things. Nature always puts its antidote next to the toxin. So ferns in the Pacific Northwest grow next to stinging nettles, and on the underside of the fern frond are little spores. You can see them. They're little black spores. If you break off the fern leaf and you rub it on this area with the spores, it actually helps to alleviate the burning stinging of the nettle. There's a plant called the dock, so dock leaf will also do it. Then another use for duct tape. So I did this at home, so I wasn't next to the fern, which grew next to the nettle, and so all I did was put it right here and then take it off. You could also, the same way that you would wax your eyebrows, you know, if you have a hot wax, you can put that over the top of your nettles and it will then take it out. So now I just did it and the stinging has gone down. So in real time, I'm taking these little nettle filaments out of my skin, and it's really simple. Now the rash is gone, they're all gone, no more stinging. So duct tape, who knew it was going to be good for so many things, from wart removal to making wallets to taking stinging nettle filaments out of your skin. Okay, Misty says, do stinging nettles have lectins? You know, I don't know, Misty. I don't think so, because lectins are usually found in more of the bean family. So, you know, when you stew stinging nettles, you put them in and you can cook them like you would spinach or any other green. It breaks down in the same way. And so I don't really think it does have lectins in it, but I'd have to look that up. Okay, any other questions? That's actually a really good question. So you can cook them like you would steamed greens. You can put them with hot water over the top of them after you've dried them, and you can make yourself a tea. You can make them into a cold infusion like I just did on video in a matter of seconds. Throw it in the mason jar, no prep needed, just stuff it in there and pour cold water over it and then stick it out in the moonlight tonight. Or I can put it in the refrigerator and make a moon tea out of it and then drink it in the morning. So many easy ways to prepare nettles. You can also, when they're dried, break them up and put them into capsules if you want to and take them as capsules. You can also take the infusion and you can make it into a cream to make a topical. So one way before you make the cold infusion, if you want to do an extra step from what I did, is put them in a mortar and pestle and just kind of release, you know, crush them up a little tiny bit, then put it in the jar and pour the cold water over it. They act very much like, you know, the same properties as like aloe would have, except it's not cooling, it's kind of heating, but it takes out the inflammation and the sting. All right, so it's a joint pain reducer. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I don't think so. Just a note about, I don't know if you heard the B-roll footage when I harvested them this morning, a note about cutting them in the wild. When you have your glove on, you want to take the top part of the stem and then take an old pair of shears and cut them at the base. Don't pull them out by the root, because they're a perennial and you want them to come back year after year after year, and they do spread. So if you take some stinging nettle and you plant it in some area of your yard because you want to have the properties and don't consider it a weed, then you can actually keep it contained with some brick border, and then you'll have it year after year after year. Same with dandelions, you know, don't yank those little guys out or put toxins over the top of them, because they're fantastic for flushing your kidneys out. And you can do the exact same thing that I just talked about with nettles with dandelion roots. Again, they're great to add to a salad. They're great to make as a cold infusion. You can also dry them and make them into a tea. Okay. Sarah says 175 milligrams. I'm not sure what that's in relationship to. I might have not seen a whole thread of conversation. Does anyone else have any questions about nettles? Those of you that are on this Facebook Live, I'm happy to answer any questions about it. I thought it was a really interesting factoid that they used to be used by the Romans to get themselves used to the cold, harsh conditions of Britain when they were coming over to go to war with what we would now call the people of Britain. I just thought that was such an interesting thing. So early Greek, ancient Romans, ancient Egyptians all have documented use of nettles, and we still have them here in our world today. And I want to bring us back to this ancient tradition of using them, and think of them instead of the kinds of medications that we're using to rebuild our bones. We don't want to do that, or we're using in rheumatoid arthritis. Sarah, use it in your pregnancy tea. Make sure that they stimulate contractions. So when you're pregnant, you shouldn't be having it unless you want to get your contractions going. Hi, Catherine. It's good to see you. Shivana says, how many doses are safe a day? Just do a quart like this and drink it all day, and there you have it. That's really good for the day. All right. Super simple. Sarah says, hi, Dr. Keesha. I got my first bowl of nettle soup tonight. Yay! Oh my gosh, it's so good. There's a recipe that I found that comes from the 1700s, and it was made in Scotland, and it's called nettle porridge, and which is nettle pudding. Now we think about pudding the way that what's the brand? Jell-O that always makes pudding right out of little boxes, and we add water or milk to it, and it's this powder nastiness. Well, they call pudding something completely different, And this recipe was using rice, and you boiled the nettles with some broccoli and any other greens you had around, added spices that you like, and mix it with rice, and it makes like a porridge. So I had inserted porridge instead of pudding, but it's a Scottish recipe for nettle pudding. And there was somebody that said they were a guest at someone's home in 1731, and they wrote in their journal that they'd had nettle pudding and it was quite good, is what he said. So again, the medicinal properties, you know, so much calcium in there. And then in addition to that, selenium and vitamin A and boron and strontium, you know, all of these really necessary for the absorption of calcium into your bones. You have to have it with those minerals, otherwise your calcium can just make kidney stones or get deposited on the inside of your arteries and create problems. So when you have something like this, the nettles, it actually has all the minerals that are necessary for you to absorb your calcium. So again, I'm like Mother Nature's little marketer here for nettles. That's my dog chewing on his squeaky toy. All right, so let's see. Trying to think if there's anything. I took some notes here about what I should be telling you. No, I think I covered it all. All right. I thought it was really interesting. I had not known about the hair regrowing properties of nettles. So if you're losing your hair, really, really good thing for you to add into your regimen. And I would encourage, again, for you to go out and harvest them rather than, hi Susan, rather than buying them as a supplement form, because it's going to be, I don't know, there's something, I call it mystical, about getting close to the earth and actually doing it yourself. And when you get to see the green, you know, it's like children planting their own garden, then they love to eat vegetables. So I always think if you, oh, thanks, Shavana. I always think that if you yourself go out and harvest what it is that you're using medicinally, you'll have a lot more appreciation for it. It brings you closer to nature, and it brings us in harmony again with our environment, instead of opening a plastic supplement bottle and popping a capsule that our body then has to break down. This way, when it's infused like this, you can just drink it and it's all set and ready to go. So there's a deep appreciation I have when I go out and kayak and grab my own sea kelp and bring it in and then dry it and grind it and mix it with my sea salt. And then when I'm eating it, I have so much appreciation and give thanks to Mother Earth and God for providing it to me. And there's something more, I think, nourishing about that than when you just sort of offhandedly take it in a supplement. So, and just because you think it's good for you. So anyway, I do have a supplement in my office. It's called Allernol, and it's got stinging nettles in it. And I put it in there because stinging nettles have fantastic healing properties for those folks that are not going to go out and wildcraft and harvest their own nettles. So the Allernol has all those properties that I talked about for hay fever and rheumatoid arthritis, joint pain, inflammation. But I would encourage you, get outside and get some nettles. It's the time of year. All right, everybody, have a fantastic day and happy nettle harvesting and preparing. And I would love, if any of you are going to do it, get me some pictures here under this feed or put them on my Facebook timeline and show me what you're doing with your nettles and how it's making you feel. And that way we can encourage other people to do the same. All right. Fantastic weekend, everybody. Love and hugs and kisses and blessings.